When and who did Hindu, Buddhist missionaries preachers born in pre-Islamic India enter the archipelago, so that sites in the archipelago are said to be based on one of the teachings of India? That it is true that Hindu, Buddhist originates from India, and it is not true that sites in the Indonesian archipelago are based on Hindu, Buddhist. In fact, what is depicted on these sites is the teaching that underlies the birth of Hinduism, Buddhism and Jainas in India. Understand this. Hinduism is the amalgamation or synthesis of various traditions and cultures in India. Synthesis arose around 500 to 200 BC in India, with diverse roots and no founding figures growing side by side with Buddhism until the 8th century. From North India, Hindu synthesis, it spread south. Late 18th century, Hindu became the equivalent term for Indian, who was not Muslim, not Sikh, not Jaina, not Christian, not Buddhist, encompassing different adherents and practitioners of different traditional beliefs. It means, the term Hindu is an antonym to other beliefs. Then the word Hindu, with the addition of the ism ending, was added around the 1830s to refer to culture and religion. The term was accepted by people India itself in terms of building national identity to oppose colonialism. Hinduism, as a gathering place for various coherent and independent traditions, was supported by the Sanskritization of the 19th century under the dominance of Western colonialism and Indology. From now on, the term Hinduism is widely used. In short, in India before the 9th century AD, a formal teaching named was born in India to distinguish not the two religions born in the 5th century BC. Buddhism, Jaina was also not Islam based on Veda. The root of Hinduism is the Brahmanism of the old Vedic teachings are based on Vedic, which was brought by the Saka Kakya Kaka Aryan, meaning this understanding was brought by immigrants, a native Indian nation named Dravida. The origins of religion in India began with the entry of the Aryan Kakya, Saka nation, which brought enormous changes in the life order of Indian society from 3102 BC to 1300 BC. That the Aryans were not the first inhabitants of India, and the Harappan, Dravidian civilization existed long before their arrival. This means that the Aryan or Vedic culture was not the sole source of early civilization in India, that the source was elsewhere. This change occurred because the Aryans carried out cultural integration with the native Indian nation, Dravida, and then this integration gave birth to three Indian religions. The Aryan nation, after it started writing the Vedic scriptures, this holy book was written in four parts such as Rig Veda, Sama Veda, Yajur Veda, and Atharva Veda. These immigrants are humans who came from the archipelago. Our ancestors were the Saka Kakya Kaka Aryan. The literacy of this word was perfectly recorded in Borobudur, with the word Mahetsakya. The text of the Mahabharata Udyoga Parva 108 can be interpreted and even concluded that the East was the origin of teachings, before being recorded as a book called Veda, a location designated as East. This is where the creator of the universe first time singing Veda. It means the literacy of the word East in the above quotation is Southeast Asia. Nusantara, Indonesia. This is where the Dharmic original teachings originated and were studied long before the existence of teachings that were born in India. So, the root of Hinduism is Brahmanism. Ancient Vedic teachings are based on Vedic, which was brought by the Saka Kakya Kaka Aryan. The text literacy of the word Kakya is written on the bas-relief of Borobudur. Now it cannot be seen because it is closed. Not because technical reasons are about to collapse, and after it is published there is a relief, porn. Kaka are the ancestors of the archipelago, written on the bas-reliefs of Vwana Kaka Phala, Borobudur, with the literary text of the word Mahachakya, nation Kakya Sakya, Shaitya, Saka, Great Aryan. The Kaka already existed far from 78 AD from the time of conquering the King Indian, Salivahana. This 78 AD figure is misinterpreted to calculate the beginning of the Saka year in the inscription. Various new cultural practices such as ritual sacrifices, which all form the basis of the early Hindu Veda culture, the basis of which is the teaching of our ancestors. Dharmic is the Dharma Dhamma Dhammo recorded in the literacy of the word Kusala Dharmabhajana in the bas-relief figure of Borobudur. Vwana Chaka Phala is now published named Borobudur. There are 160 panels on the bas-reliefs of Borobudur which are now not exposed to the language and teachings that underlie the original teachings of our ancestors, not from India. The 12 words, Svarga, are not, Nirvana, Nibbana, and the other words are Kusaladharmabhajana and Mahachakya, proves that it was in this land that the original Dharma teachings originated now perfectly preserved in Bali. In the past brought by our ancestors, the Kaka, Saka, Kakya, Arya left the Indonesian archipelago. Raffles, naming this magnificent building with the name Borebudur, assuming that near the site there is a village, Bor. In fact, there is no village called Bor. Budor, in Javanese means ancient. The Javanese meaning of Budor, Bidor is boils. Johannes Jaesbertus Casparus, Dutch philologist, wrote in his 1954 dissertation predicting its development around 824 AD. This estimate is not the result of conclusions based on academic scientific research. The books which he said underlie the design of this building are Shilpa Shastra and Vastu Sastra from India. In fact, all of these books only existed in the 5th century AD. This magnificent building had already existed before. The basic relief, which is not exposed, is published with the name Karmawibanga, using the interpretation of the Mahakarmawibanga manuscript, but does not fully follow the text. Burnett Kemper's 1970. 151 and 1976. Borobudur, published based in the Mahayana, India. Really, when Bhikkhu Ashin Jinarakita came up with the idea of holding a national Tri-Suki Waisak ceremony at Borobudur on May 22, 1953. From now on, Borobudur, published, based on Mahayana. A nun, also a Thai academic, concluded that only 50% conforms to the biography of Ven. Siddhartha Gautama and the rest he does not understand. In the archipelago in the 4th to 7th centuries AD, it was not recorded that Indian missionaries came to the archipelago. Chinese pilgrims, who came to the archipelago, were to study and record the Dharmic original teachings that had existed for a long time in the archipelago, not to bring teachings from his country were spread to the archipelago. Palembang was not the center of Buddhist teachings. Chinese pilgrims who came to the archipelago to study and record the teachings of the archipelago, which were brought to their country. Fa Huan 337422 add travel notes translated and annotated by Korean recension of Chinese text by James Legge. The Fa Huan building with a statue in it beside a large tree is the site of Mendit. Filled circle in 399 to 414 AD. Fa Huan on a journey in Svarnadvipa noted, following the river Po Nai is the river Panay, Kampar, in a place where students had lived there and made movements, walking in a circle, around the tope stupa, as well as 4 teachers sitting in 4 corners. In this place the tower has been erected. Pradaksina Prasawiya, Tawaf in Muaratakas. Sung Yun 518 to 521 AD records the existence of a power which he calls Saka Kasatrapas, from the identification of coins which are thought to have existed around 225 AD with the image of tope, or the Muaratakas stupa. In the years 602-664 AD, Hyan Sang recorded what he saw in Svarnadvipa. Beside it was a stupa built by the king, about 200 feet high. Nearby is a sign where the Tathagata walked to here and there. Filled circle Wei Ning 664 AD 667 AD traveled for 3 years on the island of Java to translate a sutra on the understanding of life after death in this archipelago called Svarga, translation assisted by a Javanese scholar named Jnanabhadra Svarga, instead of Nirvana. Filled circle I Singer Yi Jing 671-695 add a traveler from China who came to the archipelago 3 times, departing from Guangzhou, sailing 20 days for 10 years in Sriwijaya 685 to 695 AD. He stayed for 6 months in Sriwijaya, 2 months in Malayu to study. Filled circle in Svarnadvipa Nusantara. In an even older era, long before the Vedic era 6500 BC, there was a teaching that was adopted, namely, Dharma. The original teachings of the archipelago of our ancestors Saka. This is where the initial source of the original Dharmic teachings, then in the era after, the pioneer figures were recorded. Filled circle Sanjaya, filled circle Sariputra, filled circle Dharmadasa 700 to 620 BC, filled circle Dharmapala 670 to 580 BC, filled circle Svarnadvipa Dharmakirti 610 BC 520 BC, filled circle Kumarila Bada I 618 to 540 BC, filled circle Adi Sankara 569 to 537 BC, filled circle Kri Janayasa 6th century AD. They are Putra Nusantara pioneers of Dharmic original, whose landmark in Muotakui is now published. Muaratakas is the center of advanced civilization before 78 AD, who built sites in the archipelago as well as Nalanda in Indian Bihar, later named Srivijaya with his character Sailendra. So, it is true that Hindu Buddhist originates from India, and it is not true that the sites in the Indonesian archipelago are based on Hindu Buddhist from India. The teachings that are perfectly preserved in Balinese culture and reflected on the sites are the teachings that underlie the birth Hindus, Buddhists and Jainas were brought by the Kakka, Saka, Kakya, Arya of our ancestors outside the Indonesian archipelago. All the sites as well as the original teachings in the Nusantara are not based on one of the two Indian religions Hindu, Buddha, but what is still being depicted on the Borobudur site is also recorded in Bali, is what underlies the growth of the three religions there. The basic philosophy of Dharmic original is the teachings of the ancestors of the ancient Indonesian archipelago which colored India. Not the reverse. By Santo Saba.